The time is now 5:30 and a quorum is present. So I will call this meeting of the Madison Plan Commission of July 24th, 2023 to order. First, we'll get some information from our technical facilitator.
Welcome to our virtual Plan Commission meeting. We are going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff. Members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After all registrants speak, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Agenda item 1, Legistar 60306 is public comment, and I don't believe we have any public comment. Is that correct, Heather? Okay, very good. Then communications, disclosures, and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Are there any disclosures or recusals? Seeing no raised hands, we'll move on to the minutes of July 10th, 2023 regular meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing no raised hands, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Solheim, seconded by Commissioner Mendez. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next, we'll take a look at upcoming meetings. The next regular meeting is August 7th, followed by one on August 28th. And then September 18th, and those are at 5:30 and are virtual. The special meeting is scheduled for September 7th, 2023 at 5 p.m. And we are currently scheduled for room 215 of the Madison Municipal Building, but that may switch to being virtual too. And I think Heather will have some comments about that later in the meeting. Next is the consent agenda. It's a custom of the Plan Commission to remove from the agenda those items on which staff believes an application has had sufficient review to warrant approval with all of the conditions placed upon it by the various city department on which the applicant accept those conditions, and there are no individuals who are registered to speak in opposition to the item. Of the items before us today, the following are proposed for the consent agenda. Agenda item 2, Legistar 78658, vacating and discontinuing multiple unimproved public street right-of-ways within the plat of Acacia Ridge, replat number 2, to allow the replatting of a portion of the development. Being located in the southeast quarter of Section 28, Township 7, North Range 8, East, City of Madison, Dane County, Wisconsin, in District 1. Agenda item 4, Legistar 78656, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances entitled city boundaries and being part of the chapter entitled Alder Districts and Wards, annexing to the 16th Alder District the property located at 2986 Femwright Drive, 2987 Femwright Drive, and 3084 Ludds Lane in the town of Cottage Grove, amending sections of the Madison General Ordinances to annex the property to Ward 155 and assigning a temporary zoning classification of temporary agricultural district in Alder District 16. Agenda item 5, Legistar 78198, located at 102 Dempsey Road, District 15, consideration of a conditional use in the traditional residential consistent 2 district for a water pumping station and reservoir to allow an emergency electric generator to be installed at the Madison Water Utility Unit Well 11. Agenda item 6, Legistar 78422, located at 5132 Voges Road, District 16, consideration of a conditional use in the industrial limited district for an animal shelter to allow construction of an accessory building for the Dane County Humane Society. Then agenda item 7 should be referred to the August 7th, 2023 Plan Commission meeting to provide a corrected notice. And agenda items 9, 10, and 11, which are related, should be referred to the August 28th, 2023 meeting at the request of the applicant. Those are Legistar 78192, Legistar 78194, and Legistar 78225. Then also on the consent agenda, agenda item 13, Legistar 78659, amending sections of the Madison General Ordinances to add an exemption from transit-oriented development requirements for Madison and Dane County owned parks. Agenda item 14, Legistar 78688, amending sections of the Madison General Ordinances to add a door and window opening standard exemption for civic or institutional buildings in certain zoning district. Agenda item 15, Legistar 78690, amending various sections of Chapter 28 of the Madison General Ordinances to reduce some minimum setback requirements for consistency with existing lots. Are there any requests for separation? Are there any requests for separation? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing on the consent agenda items. Since there are no registrants wishing to speak, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Commissioner Solheim, seconded by Alder Duncan. And we will go to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the consent agenda passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to agenda item 3, Legistar 78580, authorizing the City of Madison Planning Division to submit an application to the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission to expand the Central Urban Service Area to include the properties located at 6401 through 6417 Cottage Grove Road in Alder District 16. And we will hear some information about that from staff member Jeff Greger. Jeff.
Thank you. Good evening. I have a short presentation that I'll go over with the commission and then answer any questions you may have. So hopefully you're seeing my screen. So I'm seeking or working the way through the process to get authorization to make an urban service area amendment to the Capital Area Regional Plan Commission for the properties located at 6401 through 6417 Cottage Grove Road. So before the city can provide sewer services to properties, they are required to be within the central urban service area. These 4 properties that we're discussing tonight are currently not. In order to make application to CARPC, we need to follow Madison General Ordinance 16.02, which requires staff to draft an application. That application needs to be reviewed by city engineering, traffic engineering, the water utility, Metro Transit, parks, police, and fire. Those agencies comment on their ability to serve the area and any costs to serve the area. And then where we're at tonight, the Plan Commission will review that draft application for the ability to provide services, the cost to provide those services, and making sure that the area that we're discussing is consistent with city plans. After Plan Commission review, it then goes on to council. They review it for health, welfare, and best interests in the city. If that passes Common Council, then the Planning Division submits that application to CARPC, and they review it and hopefully approve it and send it on to the DNR. So the area we're looking at, again, is along Cottage Grove Road. These 4 properties used to be in the town of Blooming Grove. They attached with the most recent Blooming Grove phase attachment. I believe that was in 2020. The area is about 2 acres in size and is located in the Cottage Grove Neighborhood Development Plan area. This is kind of an odd area in that the entire area is in the city of Madison already. Usually when we do these central urban service area additions, the areas are not in the city. They'd be brought in at the time of development. So all of these areas, or these 4 properties, are within the city of Madison. The reason that we need to, we're looking to expand the CUSA is that the property at 6401 Cottage Grove Road has development approval. The property owner is remodeling that building from a bank into some offices. And part of their approval is to connect to sanitary sewer, and they can't do that until this area is in the central urban service area. So this is just a brief explanation of the ability to serve and the cost to serve based on polling of the city agencies. Again, this is an odd situation because we are in the city and most of the agencies are already serving this area. So there would be no additional cost to serve it. So the streets division, stormwater, traffic engineering, Metro Transit, police, fire, and parks are already serving these properties. And again, so no additional cost to serve them for those agencies. The 2 that are not serving the expansion area currently are the sanitary sewer utility and the water utility. However, both sanitary sewer and water main are located in Cottage Grove Road. And the only thing that would be necessary other than being in the central urban service area to serve these properties would be laterals would be needed to be extended to the properties at the owner's expense. Also wanted to point out for the properties at 6409 through 6417, they're 3 single family properties. And when those properties were brought into the city, they have applied to the water utility to defer their water connections until the end of 2025. Once those deferred connection permits are expired, they do have the ability to reapply with the water utility, but it's not guaranteed that a second deferment would be given. And the thinking is once those properties connect to water, they would also be required to connect to sanitary sewer. So that's a real brief overview. This is, again, an odd situation where we're already serving for the majority of the services to those properties. It's just the sanitary sewer and the water. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Do you want to? Yeah, thank you. Are there any, we don't have any registrants. Are there any questions of Jeff? Seeing no raised hands, I'm looking for a motion. Commissioner Solheim.
I move that the Plan Commission authorizes the City Planning Division to submit an application to CARPC to expand the urban service area to include 6401 to 6417 Cottage Grove Road.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderfield. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Solheim?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion or input? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Thanks again, Jeff, for the information.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is agenda item 8, Legistar 78424, located at 526 Penny Street, District 15, consideration of a conditional use in the traditional employment district for dwelling units in a mixed-use building to allow construction of a 4-story mixed-use building containing 2,215 square feet of commercial space and 138 apartments. First, we're going to hear from staff member Lisa.
Great. Thank you, Chair Zellers. So before the commission now is a conditional use related to the redevelopment of 526 Penny Street. As Chair Zellers already summarized, it's a 4-story building with 136 units and 2,215 square feet of commercial space. And they are also proposing 103 underground parking stalls and 51 surface parking stalls. So to talk a little bit about the plan recommendations, the comprehensive plan and the Royster Clark special area plan both recommend employment for the site. And then the Royster Clark plan also specifically recommends a height of 2 to 4 stories. And just want to touch a little bit on conditional use standard 4, which states that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. So, the proposal is predominantly residential. And while the plan recommendations are both for employment, and while the Plan Commission must make, due consideration of the recommendations of the adopted plan, staff did just want to note that the site is zoned with an employment district, which is consistent with the adopted plans. And the comprehensive plan states that residential uses may be considered as a part of a conditional use under relevant zoning districts, with the current zoning having a conditional use for units in a mixed-use building. And then just thinking about some of the development that's happened in the area, the large mixed-use building to the south that includes the public library branch is also predominantly residential and zone TE. And staff does not think that approval of this request would impact the further development of the area in accordance with the recommendations of the adopted plans. And with that, staff recommendation is for approval. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. We will move now to public comment. We do have a registrant wishing to speak. I will open the public hearing. The first registrant is John Chapman, West Johnson Street, Madison, in support and wishing to speak. John, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
And John, could you clarify, are you representing anybody? You had shown no, but are you representing the developer?
Yes, correct. I'm the architect for the project and
Okay, great. Thank you.
was just prepared to answer any questions that may come up.
Oh, okay. Then we have another registrant, Ryan Stodd, Chicago Street, Milwaukee, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. And he also has said that he's not representing anybody, but my guess is he might be representing also the developer. Are there questions for either of our registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Shepherd.
Hi, yeah, quick question about the intersection with the right around the corner from the development of on Dempsey and there's a bike path and also a railroad crossing. Did traffic take a look at that, and did they consider possibly adding some additional, I don't know if it's possible, signage or something, because with the apartment, there'll be increased pedestrian traffic, bikes, cars, and that sort. And that's an awful lot sort of coming in at that area. So I didn't see anything in the staff notes about that. And we did receive part of the public record. There was a letter that someone did send in, and they did make sort of that same comment that, could there possibly be some additional either signage or lighting or something because of the increase of traffic there.
Lisa, do you want to take that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for you. I'm not aware of any comments, I think, related specifically to that. I mean, I know, in general, I would say our traffic engineering staff kind of take a look at the big picture in terms of, safety, traffic safety. But I mean, it's something that I can ask and follow up with staff. And Heather, I don't know if you are familiar with anything else.
I'm not. I'm thinking that, the access to the bike path will require folks to walk, right along the pedestrian way along Dempsey and get to the bike path relatively easily. You're asking whether there could be an additional sign to point that out?
Yeah, well, I'm just asking if there were any concerns about that, once again, with the bike path, the railroad crossing, and then you have the traffic. If this is approved and it goes forward, the traffic there will simply increase. So I was just concerned, particularly in terms of the bike path, because literally I go past there every day to work, and I know, sort of coming across there, you really have to watch out for, once again, folks using the bike path. And that's what I'm really, quite frankly, concerned about, sort of the bike path. If it could be like a flashing signal, a light, or some additional signage just to say, sort of watch out for, bikers and that sort.
Yes, I understand now. I think the Plan Commission could add a condition to ask the traffic engineer to consider whether additional signage might be necessary, given the likely increase in traffic, to really protect, I'm hearing, to protect cyclists along the bike path.
Right.
I think that might be best to get at your question and concern, and then the traffic engineer and staff team could look at that in relation to other similar settings, across the city.
All right, great. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? I would be looking for a motion then. Commissioner Solheim.
I will move that the Plan Commission find that the standards for conditional use are met and approve the request for dwelling units in a mixed-use building in the TE district for purposes of the four-story mixed-use building at 526 Penny Street, subject to the conditions in the staff report, as well as an additional condition to request that traffic engineering review potential signage on the nearby bike path at Dempsey Road.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Alder Figueroa Cole is seconding. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Solheim?
Just to say, it's been nice to see the Royster Clark area filling in. There's certainly more housing units there, and it seems to have really supported the surrounding businesses and retail and restaurants. So it's great to see this.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or discussion or input? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is agenda item 12, Legistar 78322, substitute amending sections of the Madison General Ordinances to add an exception to height and story minimum requirements. And Katie Bannon is here to give us some information about that. Katie.
Thank you, Chair. So following the last Plan Commission meeting, staff met with the River Food Pantry and their consultants about their plans to offer a variety of services in what they hope to be their new location. And as part of that, staff really had to think through a lot of options of what would be a possibility of how to move forward as we were directed by the Plan Commission. And an idea that was proposed, and I got to give Heather credit for it, was to narrow the exemption that was proposed in the code to just be for counseling community service organizations within employment districts. So this really narrows it quite a bit to areas that generally housing isn't encouraged by staff. It's not generally part of the plan for these areas. And so some of the staff concerns about trying to densify these areas around our transit investment in the transit-oriented development district, trying to do multifamily above, were really mitigated when we thought about where are these employment areas located, what are the plans for the future, and that this would be a way to allow the River Food Pantry to do a lot of their services that go well beyond food of what they're hoping for the future, while accommodating them within the transit-oriented development district. And we expect that there could be other counseling community service organizations as well, that it would make sense for them to be an employment district, and perhaps it would not make sense to have multifamily. So that's what's proposed for the substitute. Staff spoke with Alder Miazzi. He was also supportive of sponsoring this substitute change that would allow River Food Pantry to move forward, as well as other counseling community service organizations with a one-story building in employment zoning districts. And I'm here for any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. We do not have any registrants wishing to speak, but we do have a couple of registrants available to answer questions. So I will open the public hearing. The first registrant is Michael Carlson, Oak Street, Madison, in support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions, representing Raymaker Architecture and Engineering. And Rhonda Adams, Darwin Road, Madison, in support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions, representing the River Food Pantry. Are there any questions of either of our registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Alder Field.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question is about the narrowing to the employment zoning districts, and I'm wondering if staff can talk a little bit about how these employment zoning districts have been used in recent history, whether we're bringing parcels into this category or primarily taking them out of this category, if these parcels are being adopted as part of more modern neighborhood plans, kind of how the city envisions using employment districts in the future.
Is that one for Heather or for Katie? Katie, go ahead. I see your hand.
I can start, but I know Heather's going to have a lot more here. So, this includes quite a different, a variety of employment types of districts, but a lot of it is about reserving certain areas for employment specific uses. So we have industrial districts, we have more suburban type employment, but Heather can speak a lot more to the plans and what recently has come about with those employment districts.
Very good. Heather?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think a short answer is yes, we still do see a good use for employment districts, even in contemporary sub-area planning. Some examples, I'll just mention a few, are near the mall areas. If there are areas that are impacted by highway noise where residential may not be a perfect fit next to a highway, often the employment districts, either traditional employment or suburban employment, are recommended for some of those areas. And so it's not a family of districts that's completely going away, that we foresee completely going away by any means. I think that, one thing we are thinking a lot about with this interim comp plan update that the Plan Commission will see more about next month, actually in September, is perhaps relaxing our employment districts to perhaps include more residential, but they're not the places that we would see as the highest priority for residential and mixed use buildings that do include a lot of residential development. Does that get to your question?
It does. Thank you, Heather. Thanks,
Sure.
Katie.
Did you have any follow-up questions, Alderfield? Okay, thank you. Alder Figueroa Cole.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering if Heather or staff could pull up the zoning map and kind of show us what these districts are located and give us a picture view of the impact of this change, if possible, or potential impact.
We can do that. It'll take 30 seconds or so, unless you have it quicker, Katie.
Without objection in the interim, I'm going to move to, oh no, you've got it. Okay.
Okay. Well, shoot, unfortunately, I can't see it anymore. Hang on just a second.
Alder Figueroa Cole, did you have any other questions?
I mean, it depends on what the answer that will be.
Okay. Then while Heather, there. Okay, very good.
Okay, my apologies. So this is the entire city with the zoning map, and the transit-oriented development district is outlined brightly in red there for everyone to see. What I wish I could do is just select employment only so that you could see where these sites are really clearly. Unfortunately, I don't believe I can do that, but let me turn off some of the other layers that we don't need to be looking at. Okay, that simplifies things a little bit. Let's see, here on the north side, which is where the discussion at the last Plan Commission meeting and really kind of focused with the River Food Pantries request. Let's see, anything shown in either the gray area, that's actually industrial. Let's see if I can find some good employment areas. I think the purple that we see, this for instance, this area that's shown here in purple is right along Packers Ave and Pancratz. So where the former Ale Asylum building was, those types of uses are right in this area here. Let's see, on the other side of the city, Research Park, UW Research Park, that's one that a lot of folks are familiar with, is here in purple. Let's see. Just trying to figure out how best to address the Alder's question. Alder Figueroa Cole, do you have any more specifics that you'd like to see?
Yeah, for example, the one there on the west side on the Research Park. With this change, what potential benefits or, what could be the impact on that area? I mean, they will not need a conditional use to build. Like I know that on that area, we were trying to have some housing associated to the business near the
yes. Yes, this change would in no way change the opportunities for housing that exist within employment districts. I think the change attempts to solve what we heard as one of the biggest concerns about allowing one-story buildings with this counseling and community services use by only allowing that one-story version in employment districts. So if you're in a mixed-use zoning district where we're seeing a lot of mixed-use and residential development, as a counseling and community service use, you would still need to be part of a two-story building. So you'd have, for instance, you could have opportunities for residential uses above. Again, we're just trying to narrow the geography of where the single-story counseling and community services uses could be with this substitute change.
So they will have to find a piece of land on any of these purple areas to build a new facility that is focused on the counseling category that we selected. Like they will need to find a place inside those areas to be able to get the exclusion.
Correct. To be able to do a one-story building, to be able to do a building that's not at least 2 stories in height. That's correct. So it narrows their it narrows this. If you assume that a counseling and community services use really wants to be only 1 story, which I think that's a big assumption. I think a lot of them may prefer to be tenants in multi-story buildings. But if we make an assumption that that some of those organizations are seeking ways to build 1-story developments, their geography has been narrowed. With this substitute, they would need to look for opportunities within employment zoning districts within the transit-oriented development district in order to build 1-story versions of their building.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Alder Miazza.
Thank you, Chair. I guess you kind of covered it, but we're talking about really trying to focus on employment. I was wondering if Heather could touch on the fact that, like, the airport that we have around there and other employment, such as other employments that we have there, other businesses.
Sure. So with the River Food Pantry site that the River Food Pantry is very interested in along Packers, I should add that it was the one site in the city that the president's work group on environmental justice really focused on in their study of airport noise, and basically came to the conclusion that the city should support zoning changes so that future residential could not be constructed on that site. I think that's what the Alder is getting at. And so our expectation from the River Food Pantry and conversations with them is that they would seek to rezone that property from mobile home park, which it is currently zoned today, to suburban employment in order to move forward with their development proposal. So they'd be seeking rezoning to an employment district that's supported in our adopted plans, that's strongly supported by the president's work group on environmental justice action, and hoping to move forward with their project on a site that would not include residential uses.
Did that answer your question, Alder Miata?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there further questions of staff? Alder Figueroa Cole.
Thank you. Heather, do you have examples of nonprofit organizations that we have today that are that qualify under that classification?
I think I'll look at Katie for this. I think there are a variety of organizations that could qualify for this definition. Katie, do you want to talk about a few of them?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a couple examples just offhand that we've had since I started. A lot of uses that are more in office. I would say most nonprofits fall into this counseling community service use. There are some like health clinics and other things that kind of do a more specific type of thing, or a university could be a nonprofit or a place of worship. But a lot of your typical like public-facing nonprofits that are helping people fall into this counseling community service use. I'm sorry, I don't have an example offhand of one that's come in recently.
All right, thanks.
I'll add just a little bit to that. I mean, you know, I think, you know, one that's near where I live is probably the Tenant Resource Center. That's an example of a nonprofit that would fit into this category. There are many, you know, folks that are helping people to find housing. That's the Tenant Resource Center is one, but you know, social organizations with social workers, et cetera. One of the important aspects I think that staff was thinking through when this idea came to us is that, you know, these organizations serve folks that may be transit dependent, and it is important that there are opportunities for these organizations to be located within the transit-oriented development area. At the same time, many of the organizations, especially if they're working alone, often may not have the capital to be developers of a multi-story complicated building with many tenants. And so I think, you know, those are some of the considerations that we as staff had, and, you know, really see that while there's some fear that there might be more one-story buildings than we once intended to see, there are things that are on the other side of that scale that commissioners and ultimately the council need to balance when making this decision.
Thank you, Heather. Are there further questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, I'm looking for a motion. Commissioner Solheim.
I move that the Plan Commission approves the zoning text amendment outlined in Legistar 78322 in the staff report addendum, which adds an exemption to the 2-story minimum requirement in the TOD overlay for counseling and community service organizations when the organization is located within an employment zoning district.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Mendez. Commissioner Solheim, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yeah, just briefly, you know, something I was thinking about when we were reviewing this meeting and for the prior meeting. So I'd say it is more likely for these organizations, often nonprofits, as Katie mentioned, to move into an existing building or to be within a mixed use building. You know, building a new building for one use is expensive. And if someone is doing it, I think it's because they have a specific need, similar to the case here. And also, as Heather pointed out, the location in TOD can be a good asset for those that are served by this type of agency. So that's why I'm supporting this. Thank you to staff for your additional work on this. Also.
Any further discussion or comments? Alder Miazza.
I just want to thank city staff and also too for you guys, the commission, basically not to give up on this project, but to see that it's very much needed to actually look for solutions rather than just to kill a project. So I really appreciate the knowledge and wisdom that this commission has on board. So just thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Alder Figueroa Cole.
I mean, I think staff did their best to accomplish the task that we asked. I'm still concerned about the unintended consequences that this may bring to future projects and decisions that this board has to make. I mean, I'm not going to oppose it, but I just want to voice that I'm still uncomfortable with moving forward with this. I understand. I support the work of the pantry 100%, but I'm going to always be uncomfortable when we make changes like this to satisfy one individual organization or person. It just makes me uneasy. So I won't oppose it, but I just want to raise that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Other comments or input? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next is business by members. Any business that members would like to raise? Seeing no raised hands, then secretary's report. Heather.
Thank you, Chair Zellers. I'll first mention that the council at their last meeting did refer the consideration of the subdivision ordinance to tomorrow evening. They'll be taking that up again, and it's still in very similar form. There are a few added phrases being suggested in a third substitute that's on Legistar now. I think that the Plan Commission work on that item was very important, and I don't see anything within the substitutes that really take away from the Plan Commission's work on that item. We'll report back to you next time. Hopefully the council will be able to act on that tomorrow. Looking forward to our August 7th meeting. I don't think we have any really significant development projects that will be in front of the commission, but a few items, some of which may have some discussion, including one that was just referred to August 7th this evening. And then on August 28th, I want to mention a few major items. First, the referral from this evening of 18 to 30 North Carroll Street, the new History Museum, will be on August 28th. Also, a new academic building, Levy Hall, on UW-Madison campus on North Park Street and Bernard Court and Dayton Street. And then the former Voight property, 3420 to 3614 Milwaukee Street, will have a rezoning request and preliminary plat to lay out future development of that property. And then finally, let's see, I think I wanted to mention on the September 7th Plan Commission special meeting, we've been working as a staff team to really focus that meeting on the comprehensive plan interim update and to provide an opportunity for the public to speak with plan commissioners about their proposals for potential changes to the generalized future land use map, and also their reactions to the staff's proposed changes to the generalized future land use map. One of the things we've been discussing is that it will probably be better to hold that meeting as a virtual meeting in order to make it more accessible to folks who may want to attend just to get their comments heard to the Plan Commission. So right now on your agenda this evening, the September 7th meeting is listed as in person. in the Madison Municipal Building. And I'm just letting folks here know, and folks who are listening know, that that may change. That may end up being a virtual meeting, and we'll be sure to clarify that by your August 7th Plan Commission meeting. It will be reflected accurately on that agenda. So just wanted to give you a heads up about that. And Kevin Furco will be with you again on the August 7th meeting, and I'll be back with you on August 28th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather. With that, I am looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Solheim, seconded by Commissioner Shepard, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, we are adjourned, and I will see you on August 7th. Thank you, everybody.